So another piece that we have comes to us from you, and it's on the National Rifle Association and sort of the ongoing drama between board members that are unhappy with the direction of the organization as it's obviously going through its corruption trial. You actually obtained a letter from an NRA board member essentially saying as much, publicly calling out the direction of the organization and trying to encourage them to get back on track. If you want to tell us what your reporting found.
Yeah, Owen Buzz Mills, who's been a board member for quite a while at the NRA. He's also the owner of Gunsight Academy, which is a very well known firearms training facility out in Arizona. So he's a pretty prominent member of the board, at least within the firearms community generally. And he's been somebody who has been open to these sort of reform efforts in the past. I think he resigned at one point over concerns with the insurance. The board's insurance policy was canceled at one point, and they had to get a new one over the corruption allegations. And so, but he's on the board, and he's apparently very upset about what's going on with not just the trial in New York, which, by the way, has been ongoing for 2 weeks now. We had Rocky Marshall, who's a former board member and another dissident or Wayne LaPierre critic, on the show last week, talk about his testimony in that trial. But yeah, Buzz seems more upset about how things are moving to replace Wayne. LaPierre stepped down, or announced he's going to step down at the end of the month. And it's not really clear what's going to happen to fill the EVP position, executive vice president position. But apparently there's at least some indications from board members that I've spoken with that they're going to try to make Charles Cotton the current president of the NRA and longtime Wayne ally, who was chairman of the audit committee when they approved a lot of these controversial expenses and contracts that are at issue in this court case, and actually oftentimes retroactively approve them because they were not told of them beforehand. There's another common issue that's at play in the court case. But he's currently the president because they changed the bylaws to allow him to serve a second term when he was supposed to be out. Earlier, they pushed out somebody else named Willis Lee, who was in line to be president. They've done a lot of that kind of maneuvering over the last month or so at the NRA. Andrew Rulonundum, who was the spokesperson for a long time, for decades, I think, really, and longtime Wayne confidant, was moved from spokesperson or communications director to head of general operations, which is what runs like the safety and training program and things of that nature, the competition stuff that the NRA does in the 501c3 arm, nonprofit arm of the NRA. And they pushed out DeBurgalis is the guy's name, to do that. And not coincidentally, I think that role is the person who's in line to become interim executive vice president. And so they did this right before Wayne announced he was resigning. So they, essentially, one of LaPierre's closest confidants is going to be the interim executive vice president. And it looks like there's some effort, at least, to make another one of his closest confidants a more permanent solution at that position with Charles Cotton. And that's what Buzz Mills is upset about. He doesn't like Charles Cotton and the things that he's done when he was on the audit committee and so forth. And so he sent a letter to the board trying to scuttle this whole plan, essentially. It's certainly breaking the internal drama back out into the public view once again as the NRA goes through this corruption trial.
Yeah, it's sort of a continuation of sort of similar actually to what Rocky Marshall, who we had on the show last week, was saying about now's the time, everything's busting out wide in the open. These allegations have been around for a while, obviously, but now that it's on trial, other people have a chance to try to get this organization, people that care about the organization have a chance to try to get it back on track. And yet they're seeing all this maneuvering that you're describing here. And what's looking like a concerted effort to kind of keep more of the same types of people in control of the organization. So I don't think these fights are going to go away anytime soon if that is the case, between the camp of people that want to see the NRA truly reformed and the camp that wants to, get past the bad allegations of wrongdoing and keep longtime folks in control of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, the NRA had some good news this week that we discussed with Mark on the DOJ sort of coming to their support at least a bit in their First Amendment case, but they had a lot of bad news as well this week, and this was a big part of it. The Buzz also brought up this accusation that Wayne was given a bonus to cover the money that he was required to pay back to the NRA for, quote unquote, excess benefits. For people who don't know, Wayne has actually admitted to some wrongdoing here. The NRA generally, as part of their case, has admitted to some wrongdoing that they claim to have corrected themselves internally. Excuse me. Every time to do a podcast, it comes through. Anyway, they've admitted to some wrongdoing, but their claim is that they've reformed themselves. And part of that is that Wayne had to pay back some money. It's about $1 million at this point, but initially it was a couple $100,000 back in 2019. And the Buzz Mills claimed that there was an effort to give him a bonus that was apparent. He claims Charles Cotton was in charge of this, and that the bonus would cover the amount that he had to pay back to the NRA. And so, the NRA denied this, to be clear, in a quote to us, and said that, Wayne's compensation is part of the public record. And if you do go back and look at those 990s, and this is in the piece, people can read it and look at the 990s themselves, of course. Wayne LaPierre did receive a pretty substantial increase in his compensation between 2017 and 2018, which was the year right before he made those payments back to the NRA. And then his salary has his total compensation has decreased over time since then. So, that's, I guess, the bump in pay that is at issue here. Whether or not that was related to, an effort to cover the costs that he would have to repay the NRA is, we don't have any proof of that, to be very clear. This is just a claim that is in this letter. But certainly the money that Wayne received from the NRA during that time period did increase rather substantially. It was about $800,000 worth of increased total compensation between those 2 years. So that was another accusation that's been floating around for a while, but that Mills put as part of this letter in his effort to keep Cotton from becoming executive vice president and instead to advocate for a more formal search for a new executive vice president that would involve the entire board. Because one of the board members that I spoke with said they're concerned that the NRA, that Charles Cotton in particular, is going to call a virtual board meeting, perhaps as soon as next week, to have Cotton made EVP for at least for a period of time, for a couple of years. There was some comment to this effect during the previous board meeting earlier this month. And, the next official board meeting isn't until, I believe it's May, whenever the annual meeting is. So we'll have to see what happens. That's at least some of the concerns out there. And there's a lot of drama over this whole thing right now.